much. So, mainly as an excuse so I can rest a minute, are there any questions from the audience about improvisation? In the back.
What kind of structure do you follow for each part?
Are you a jazz player?
What's that?
Are you a jazz player?
Yeah.
So you're thinking like chord changes?
Oh.
Or like rondo or something?
Yeah, I guess more that.
More like a classical form?
I mean both actually.
Okay, one can do that. A couple weeks ago I did a concert and I did some variations on chord progression. It's known as La Folia, craziness, is that what that means? And yes, you can actually do that so that, you know, there's a specific harmony for every measure. And really all you have to do is decorate that harmony. For all of this, I'm not really following any form or any chord progression. I'm really making it up as I go. Sometimes the themes give me ideas about the kind of form, like this last one, you notice I kept coming back to that aggressive descending thing. So it ends up having the shape of what we call a rondo, which is where you have a recurring idea. But that's mostly just because I wanted to hear that. I thought it was exciting. For a lot of them, I don't actually follow. I let the structure kind of happen as it goes. It's a little bit more risky and daring, but certainly one can follow an established structure. You can do both. Okay, great question. Yes, sir.
How do you know when it's time to return to the primary thematic material?
If I can make you believe it was a good idea at the time. Because music is perception, right? That's all it is. You know, how do you tell if food is good? You eat it and you just say. That's how you know. And how do you know if it's time? Well, you do it, and if it seems right, then it is time. So again, that largely can be spontaneous. If it just feels like, hey, now would be a good time, then often I will. Sometimes you have to navigate your way back, like you want to do it in a certain key, and sometimes I wander into keys I kind of didn't mean to go to. And so now you have to quickly figure out a way to get back before you can play that theme again. So one does get into little corners and problems from time to time. But really, all music, if it sounds good, it's good. Really, I think that's the final test. So if it seems like now would be a good time, then it is. If it feels like I've been rambling along too long on these patterns, then probably that's true. So there's no mathematical formula for it. So interesting question. Others? Yes?
So I play piano in like a contemporary worship band, right? So I work off of like a chord chart.
Yeah.
I pretty much improvise, like I'll improvise my part. But I was curious, I noticed myself kind of having these like comfort figurations,
Yeah.
statements and stuff. So I was wondering if you had like, I guess, generalized ways of working in one style and how to diversify.
That's a great term, comfort figurations. I know exactly what you mean. You need them, but you also need to outgrow them, right? Yeah, so what do? Play them until you are sick of how you sound. Because at that point you're good at those, and now you can add some things to your library. But really, anything, and this goes for on-page musicianship as well, is in order to prepare it to play publicly, it has to be somewhat bulletproof, right? And that usually means we're practicing to the point of boredom and then beyond the point of boredom. So I do notice those comfort figurations, and I periodically resolve to say, okay, now I'm going to go and research some different keyboard styles and kind of change up my sound for the next 6 months, because I'm tired of sounding like me, and I want to sound like a different me. So I love the way you said that. I'm going to borrow that term, okay? Comfort figurations. You get credit for that. That's brilliant. Good. Another. Yes?
What caused you to become interested in improvisation, and at what point did you begin pursuing it? Is it something you've always done since you were young, or did it become a point in your career when you decided to actively focus more on improvisation?
Yeah. Attention deficit disorder, primarily. No, a lot of things led to it. I love classical music, and I love the tradition of the composed music, but I also play jazz, and I became aware of the very robust tradition of improvisation that died out a couple of hundred years ago, and I started to make contact with other people who were interested in reviving that. And so we have kind of an international study group where we go after how they taught it, what they did, why were they so good at it, and we're so bad at it. And there are reasons. It's how they were trained. So it's been a multi-year project of studying that and then figuring out how does a modern person take hold of those ideas and practice them. Essentially, we structure our educational systems around maintaining a repertoire. You know, the stuff that's in the official museum of music, whether it's the Sibelius Concerto or Handel's Messiah or Beethoven sonatas. Everything we do is structured around playing those scores. And so, of course, when you get off the score, we're not sure what to do. And so I got very interested in what was school like when they had to fake it all the time. What did they do? How did they practice? How do you practice making stuff up? And so that, and also I just had so much fun playing it live because it really is very exciting to do. Also, Keith Jarrett. I love Keith Jarrett, the great jazz pianist, because he really did. He would walk out with absolutely no idea and play these great concerts, these beautiful concerts. And I thought, that is like swan diving off of Half Dome. I mean, that just seems, how do you do that? So those were the things that really drove me to it. And no, it's been fairly recent, in middle age and up, that I started to do it. It did help that I played rock and roll and blues guitar as a kid. That was a big help. But I was playing regular music until about 10 years ago. Great question. Anybody else? Sir.
You ever get stuck? How do you get out?
Yes, and I'm not telling. One of the big problems with improvisation versus playing on page is that you very often find yourself playing a passage that you've literally never practiced. And so that's why sometimes the hands default to these comfort figurations. Because the hands just want something that they know. So it takes a little extra concentration to get through those kind of moments where, okay, I'm about to do something that I've actually never done, I've never practiced it. I only have it in my head. And that can be a little tricky. Most of us have our safety net things that we'll do. If things start falling apart, we have just these progressions and figurations that will just come out of nowhere and sort of save the day. Just make a lot of noise and make everybody forget about that problem. It's pretty much what you do. Horowitz used to do this thing when he was playing and he felt the audience slipping away. He would suddenly drop to pianissimo for no reason. And that got everybody's attention. So that's another good one. You can get all sensitive all of a sudden. It's a good one. You just don't point it out. Just don't point it out. Just like, as the old etiquette books would say, you know, if you're there at a nice dinner and you cough up a pork bone on the table, you just put your napkin over it and act polite. So that's basically, put a napkin over it and act polite. That's what you do. Great. Maybe one more before we go on? Yes?
How long would you say it took you to feel comfortable to perform like this?
Yeah. A while. It takes a while. You have to internalize a lot of stuff. Fortunately, the 18th century Italian training system was designed for that. It was designed not to internalize one printed version of something like a Mozart sonata, but every possible permutation of music. And they did this with something called bass motions, moti del basso. And the bass can move in all these different ways. And for every pattern in the bass, there are multiple harmonic solutions. And so you pretty much can know every possible thing to do once you see 2 or 3 notes in the bass. You know everything that can be done in that style. And that's known as the partimento tradition. So that took years, definitely. And I sneaked into it. You know, I would play half a program of compose music, and then I would maybe play some variations by Handel, and I would not tell anybody, but I would try my own without, because if it was bad, I wanted to blame it on Handel. And I wouldn't tell anybody. Just to find out, what happens? Does your head explode? What happens when you go out there and do it? And then I would gradually do more and then tell the audience I was going to improvise some, and then maybe do the whole set of variations. So very gradually got into it. I've made a lot of mistakes, although I've never actually fled in terror from the stage. It's not as bad as you would think. Maybe one more before we go, and then I promise we're going to go on. Yes, young man. All the time, every day. I do, yes. I practice at home for hours. I play with my metronome every day. Yeah, I practice like crazy. Have to. It's a great question. All right, let's see how we're doing. Oh, wow. Look at the time. All right, I got to finish up.